Hey, what's going on YouTube? I'm Noah Casala. I'm a registered dietitian, and in today's video, I'm really excited to bring to you guys essentially answering one question. And this question is, what is the ideal nutritional plan, and more specifically, what is the ideal caloric range for a female to build muscle, right? And we're going to break down the science. We're going to look at every little step of the way, in addition to, right, planning out about 12, maybe even 24 weeks of what a caloric range, an ideal caloric range would be for optimal muscle growth. So I'm sure, right, this is going to answer a lot of your questions, but if you have any other questions, please, let's keep the conversation going in the comment section below. In addition, I would love it if you gave me a subscribe. We've got this YouTube channel rocking and rolling now. I'm really excited to bring to you guys all the nutrition nerdiness and around fitness and food and all that stuff. So definitely give me a subscribe and stay tuned for more awesome topics. So without further ado, let's jump into today's topic. Female calorie recommendations for building muscle. Right, this is very specific here, right? We're talking female, we're talking building muscle, and we're going to look at a case study. And fortunate for us, we've got a great example. My significant other, Sydney, she actually has kind of grown a passion for this idea of bodybuilding and self-improvement and getting stronger. And we've been going to the gym, on and off now for like the past year or two. I've personally been a big fan of bodybuilding myself. It's what got me into nutrition in the first place. So, she's seen me kind of adopt some of these things and being a dietitian and her living with that, she's having to eat healthy foods anyway. She doesn't have to, but of course, right, it kind of influences that for sure. So with that being said, we've got a case study review. So we're going to look at her specific metrics as far as where she's at now, what her goals are going to be. We're going to look at what her calories should be, breaking down that from, looking at what her basal metabolic rate is to, right, how much activity she's doing throughout the day, right? How are we going to prescribe those calories? We're going to dive into the science and the research into some of these aspects as well, so you have a good reason why these things are happening the way they are. Okay, so here is our case study. On the right, you can go ahead and see an arrow pointing to my significant other there. She is, she's currently 5'4". She weighs about 151 pounds, 68.8 kilograms, an estimated body fat percentage of around 33 to 34%. So then we have an estimated lean body mass kind of based on that metric of about 100 to 110 pounds. So this is where we're starting right now. And she, also to mention, she's 26 years old. She turns 26 on January 31st. So in just a few days. But we're now talk about essentially what her goals are going to be and how we're going to prescribe calories and designate those calories and the thought process behind that and a little bit of the research behind that as well. So let's get into that. Goals here, right? The goals are to potentially compete in a bodybuilding show, right? To take bodybuilding more seriously. Some things I'm keeping an eye out, like keeping body fat or at or lower than about 30%. So in addition, right, muscle mass, this is what we're really trying to get after, or lean body mass. We're trying to increase this from, that 100 to 110 to maybe 110 to 130. And I have a predicted increase of about a half a pound to 2 pounds per week of overall weight. Weight gain is going to be, or weight in general is going to be one metric, but then the other metrics are going to essentially be like, how much muscle mass are we accruing? How much body fat are we accruing? Are we seeing increases in strength and performance at the gym? All of which, right, are going to be something that we're paying attention to. And then, of course, as we are going through this, I am predicting somewhere between 12 weeks to finish out the 12 weeks and 24 weeks to finish out kind of this phase of increasing body tissue. I think this could also be referred to as kind of a lean bulk or something along those lines. So I think we get into the weeds now. We talk about what we're going to do moving forward as far as calories are concerned. Let's go ahead and jump in. When we think about calories, right, there are several components that are going to go into this prescription, this idea, this number that we need to achieve in order to make this happen. And I've had this listed here. So we have your basal metabolic rate, right? So this is the rate at which the calories that you are consuming, right, how many are partitioned just to keep you, right, breathing, your eyeballs working, your liver working, your kidneys, your brain, your heart, right? So like the basic functions of your body, how many calories are required to do that. I think that's a very important piece that we'll mention here. Your activity factor, I put important in capitalization with some exclamation points. The bigger piece here is, right, estimating this activity factor, how much she's moving throughout the day to ensure that we're consuming enough calories. So then, right, this is going to give us our maintenance calories, and our maintenance calories, right, are going to be that level where right, the ins and outs are even. So, right, the amount of calories that we're burning per day and then the amount of calories that we're consuming they're even. And so that's going to be our maintenance calories. But then we also talked about, right, having an ideal optimal situation for muscle growth, right? It's a very energy expensive endeavor, so having enough calories is going to be important, and then having a little bit extra, right, just to make sure that you've got enough to go have that extra energy to push it in the gym, to have that extra energy to actually develop those muscle tissues. With that being said, these are the 4 that we're going to cover today. We're going to look at the science and what that looks like to give you a little bit better of an idea of your total daily energy expenditure, right? So these are the amount of calories that you essentially are using per day, right? This is the amount of calories that are going out. These aren't the calories that are going in. These are the calories that are going out. These 4 sections, let's go through them real quick. So you've got your basal metabolic rate, which we've covered a little bit. This is essentially, anywhere between 60 to 70% of your total calories that you're burning per day are essentially just keeping you alive, right? They are keeping your lungs working, your heart working, your liver working, your eyes working, just all those daily functions that you need. The next portion of this is called your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is all the activities that aren't having intentional movement throughout the day of being like, I'm going to go work out, I'm going to go ride my bike, I'm going to go to the gym and lift, I'm going to go on a run, all of that is not included in this. This essentially is describing the daily patterns and lifestyle that you're living. I have to walk my dog, I have to unload the dishwasher, I have to take a shower, right? 70 to 90% of our calories are going to be attributed to just kind of daily living, daily tasks, very simple, not very energy intensive exercise. And we group these as such, right? That we grouped it as, and it's called your REE, or your resting energy expenditure, right? This is the expenditure of calories, of the use of calories, the burning of calories that you are using throughout the day for non-exercise activities. Okay. And then next we have your thermic effect of food. And this is an interesting one, right? So think about this. When you are eating food, right, you have to chew the food. Then, right, you have to swallow the food. And then it goes to your esophagus. Once it gets to your esophagus actually has these smooth muscles that contract in this thing called peristalsis, where it's actually like kind of squeezing the tube to get that chewed up food down to your stomach. Once it gets to your stomach, then it's going to hit some stomach acids. Those are going to get released. These things called hydrochloric acid and pepsin are going to start to break apart those amino acids that you just ate that chicken breast or whatever it might be. From there, it's going to go into your small intestines, your duodenum, your jejunum, and then you're going to have some pancreatic enzymes starting to break down some of those foods and, deliver them into the bloodstream and take them to where they need to go. So all of these processes cost energy. They cost you some sort of energy. So, right, consuming food, eating food costs you food. It's like you got to spend money to make money in a way, right? Is a good analogy here for the thermic effect of food. I hope that gave a pretty good description here. We have the final one, which is exercise activity thermogenesis. It's this final little sliver, somewhere in between the range of like 5, maybe 10% of your total daily calories are going to be partitioned off to make sure that you have enough in the tank to go work out or do what you need to do, or it's going to cost you that no matter what. The last few that we've talked about, your thermic effect of food, your exercise activity thermogenesis, these are going to be referred to as your non-resting energy expenditure. You're actively burning calories to do something, right? And so you can see how that's broken up into 2. So I hope this gives you a little bit better of an idea of when we talk about like how many calories you're burning per day and, right, the equations that we're using and trying to find out. I hope this gives you a little bit better of an idea of what we're actually describing moving forward. So let's get into this next piece. There was an interesting study that I looked up. It was the nutritional aspects of women women strength trained athletes or strength athletes. And so I took this straight out of there. Let's go ahead and read this. So energy intake. This section was interesting. Energy balance is an important nutritional consideration for strength athletes, particularly women. Positive nitrogen status is necessary for optimal acquisition of lean body tissue and is related to energy balance. I'm going to pause there and explain this real quick. So positive nitrogen status, what that essentially means is, right, do you have enough free amino acids, right? Do you have enough protein intake, and can that protein be used for the job that it needs to do? Meaning, can it, is there enough energy, right? Is there enough carbohydrates and fats in order to allow protein to go do what it needs to do? Let's continue. A negative energy balance is associated with increased catabolism of protein, right? So what we referred to earlier, which can compromise skeletal muscle hypertrophy. And so this is saying here, right, if you are not having a positive nitrogen balance, right, you're not eating enough protein, or you're not consuming enough calories, which is causing you to break down protein and use it as a fuel source, right? The catabolism of protein through that process of gluconeogenesis, this will compromise skeletal muscle hypertrophy or muscle growth. Thus, adequate energy consumption should be the first priority for female athletes to sustain activity, promote muscular growth and optimal body composition, and maintain ideal health. So this is super important. I want to mention that again. Adequate energy consumption, enough calories. There is a need to educate women on the importance of energy balance, because a staggering 2/3 of female collegiate athletes report wanting to lose weight and are attempting to decrease energy intake. Female athletes are commonly reported as maintaining negative energy balance due to factors such as preoccupation with body image and societal pressures to achieve low body fat percentage. These self-reported energy deficits, although not always accompanied by weight loss, are often associated with irregular menstrual cycles, indicating that energy intake may not be appropriate. Although female athletes are typically use energy restriction as a means to improve body composition, female athletes with larger or more frequent daily energy deficits have higher body fat percentages, perhaps due to the adaptive reduction in resting metabolic rate. And essentially what this is meaning here, right, going back to the top here, we have this negative nitrogen balance, or this negative energy intake, or the restrictive energy intake, which is increasing the catabolism protein, breaking down protein for fuel, right? So you have an athlete that's out there running their butt off, right, thinking that they're burning more fat, but in essence what's happening is they're raising their heart rate up so much that they don't have time to kind of break apart the fatty tissues, but instead they have to start breaking down protein, and that protein's probably coming from their muscle mass. And so, then they're, shrinking their muscle mass, which is then going to be reducing their overall metabolic rate. So, this idea of eating more to lose weight, I mean, this is a great concept of kind of where this in nature is coming from. So with that being said, I think this sets us up really nicely for how many calories we're going to do it for this muscle gaining phase, and what the optimal range is here. So let's get into that. So as we started talking about earlier, which was the basal metabolic rate, that big percentage of overall calories that you're going to be partitioning off for just keeping you alive, breathing, eyeballs, brain. We've gone over it a couple times. Let's not do it again. I've got two equations here that we kind of used, and these were the Harris-Benedict equation and the Owens equation. These are both equations that are predictive in nature, right? The idea is that they can predict based on, as you can see in the Harris-Benedict equation, we have several factors. We have weight in kilograms, we have height in centimeters, and then we have age in years. We have under the Owens, we have our body weight in kilograms plus these other two factors as well. And so this is going to give us a predictive equation for what that amount of calories that are going to be needed for that big percentage, or that basal metabolic rate that we saw in our total daily energy expenditure. So let's look at that real quick. So when we did this for Sydney, and that gave us a number of about 1,413 calories. And then with the Owens equation, it was somewhere in the range of about 1289. Okay, so with that being said, right, pretty high number. Let's go ahead and take into account, right, this important factor, right? We had this as a explanation point. Something that was really important was the activity factor, right? What is the lifestyle? So she's a hairstylist, right? She works 4 to 5 days a week. She works long shifts, right? She works probably 7 to 10 hour shifts per day. She's on her feet. She's cutting hair. She's having to talk to and interact with clients, right? That takes energy to do so. I think another thing that would fall into this category if you were a waiter, or if you were a waitress. Home life. In this circumstance, we have Belgian Malinois. She's wild, named Kita, and she is she's a handful. So we have to make sure that she is we have to walk her 2 walks a day minimum. Probably do at least 1 exercise event per day. Then we have to do a some sort of tug or something at night. So like there's a lot of activity there with owning a very active dog. In addition to this, we have 6 workouts per week. And so there's a lot of activity going on here, and you want to factor that in because, again, right, you want to have sufficient energy intake, right, the priority. And then in addition to, right, allowing for a positive nitrogen balance, allowing you to consume enough protein, but then having that protein go do what it needs to do. And so that's where this activity factor comes into play, and it's really important. So let's go ahead and look at what we're doing for activity factors. So we looked at two aspects of this. Activity factors can range, right? And so this first range, right, we have 1.9 times that basal metabolic rate equals, the maintenance calories. And so I wanted to clarify here, right? There are several levels to this. So for instance, an example might be we are working an office job. I'm in a chair right now, right? I'm filming YouTube videos. It's energy. I'm using my hands, but I'm still kind of active, but not nearly as much as a hairstylist on her feet, changing out color, all that fun stuff. So, okay, I'm pretty sedentary. Let's say I don't work out at all. And then at home, I don't have a dog. I pretty much come home and watch Netflix, right? That activity factor could be something like a 1.2 multiplied by that 1438. Let's say we are a little bit more active, right? We maybe still work a desk job, but then we work out twice a week. Nothing crazy. We're just trying to maintain, maybe we could have a higher activity factor, maybe a 1.375, and then that can just continue to increase. I have this pretty high at a 1.9. I think this actually could be a little bit higher. I think it could be a little bit lower. It's an estimate. And we're going to see how things play out. Again, we're kind of measuring and keeping an eye on that body fat percentage. So there was another thing that we looked at with the research. We'll pull it up here in a minute, which was the recommendation was somewhere in the range of 39 to 44 calories per kilogram. And you can see the numbers are pretty close here. So for the maintenance calories, with including that activity factor that I predicted there, would be about 2,684 calories. This would be that maintenance level of calories. Remember, energy balance, right? The amount of calories we have going in and the amount of calories that we have going out, they're equal to each other. It's not off or unbalanced, I guess you would say. And so that piece is that's what I predicted there. And then for this 39 to 44 calories per kilogram, which would be somewhere in the range of about 2,683, 1 calorie lower than the other one, and all the way up to about 3,027 calories per day. So gives us a good range, gives us a good idea of kind of where we should be at for maintenance. Now that we have kind of examined this idea of essentially the basal metabolic rate, we've identified what those amount of calories are. We took into account all of the activity factors for this example. We took into account like home life, working out. We are onto this idea of, is an energy surplus required? And this is a great study, right? Titled, Is an Energy Surplus Required to Maximize Skeletal Muscle Hypertrophy Associated with Resistance Training? So the daily energy cost of protein turnover accounts for 20% of resting energy needs, or 18 kilojoules per kilogram body weight or body mass. Skeletal muscle hypertrophy requires the further remodeling of muscle, ensuring it is an energy intensive process, right? So it's a very costly process to try and grow new muscle tissue. As such, there has been much discussion around the role of energy balance, i.e. energy surplus, energy deficits, and isocaloric states in modulating hypertrophy. Currently, there is a paucity of literature that directly addresses the precise role energy deficits, surplus, and net balances states play in muscle hypertrophy. It's not for sure, but it's a good guess is kind of where we're at right now. And I think that's where we leave it. But we are going to go with this as we move forward, is we are going to, we're going to play in this idea of energy balance, but then also increasing calories over time. And I'll show you the reason why. So continuing on here, and this is an energy surplus required to maximize skeletal muscle hypertrophy associated with resistance training. What is clear from the existing literature is that there is yet to be defined a single evidence-based energy estimate for a creation of 1 kilogram of skeletal muscle mass, SMM. This is most likely because of the impact of the individual, presenting nuances, age, genetics, prior training experience, sex, body composition, as well as adaptations to the energy surplus. Provides a theoretical overview of energy costs generating skeletal muscle mass typically reported amongst resistance-trained individuals, the results of which are similar to that estimated previously. A better understanding of these variables and their impacts on resistance training induced skeletal muscle hypertrophy may offer better individual prescriptions of energy surpluses. Until then, practitioners are advised to take a conservative approach to creating energy surpluses within the range of 1,000 to 2,000 kilojoules per day to maximize fat-free gains, with regular review of body composition and functional capacity, like strength training, to further personalized dietary intake, right? This is exactly what we're doing, right? We're getting to a point of calorie maintenance. We're going to be checking with body fat percentage, output and production in the gym, accumulation of muscle mass. So, right, you can kind of see how, we're aligning these ideas together here with, the caloric surplus and what we're going to be doing as far as calories are concerned. Another study was looking at the nutritional recommendations of bodybuilders in the off season, right? A narrative review. However, initially post-competition, a faster weight gain to help restore a competitor to healthy status, both psychologically and physiologically, might be beneficial before the rate of weight gain is slowed to limit excessive accumulation of adipose tissue. So in the scientific literature, it has been recommended to aim for a target weight gain of 0.25 to 5 kilograms per week to increase lean body mass and minimize gains in fat mass. For advanced bodybuilders, a potential 2 kilogram increase in body weight on a monthly basis might be too excessive and result in unnecessary accrual of body fat tissue. Thus, this rate should be considered with caution. Based on the current evidence, it may be appropriate to recommend bodybuilders to consume a slightly hypercaloric diet, which would be roughly about 10 to 20% above maintenance in the off-season, and recommended advanced bodybuilders may aim for the lower end of this recommendation, or even more conservative if substantial increases in fat mass are experienced. So this gives us another good reason, another good example on, in addition, right, if we want to create the most optimal environment for muscle growth, it would appear that, right, calories are going to play a huge role in this equation. And so now what that exact number is to be determined. I think that, right, you have to play with it. You have to understand yourself. You have to know where you're at as far as an advanced, not advanced lifter. You have to take into account, like, how much fat are you accumulating week over week? Is it too much? Is it too little? So there's a lot of things to take into account. So now that we have a good understanding of this idea of a caloric surplus and how much we actually need, this is the idea behind what we're going to do for this muscle gaining phase, right? This next 12 weeks. this is how we'll break it down. So we're going to start out at maintenance calories, about 2,684 calories. Then, right, we're going to gradually increase from that number, from the original number here of 2,684. We're going to add in 5%, then 10% onto that, right, same number, and then 15%. And, so there's going to be probably an increase in overall calories burned. And so to adjust for that and to kind of keep us in a surplus as we are, increasing overall, also performance in the gym might increase as well. We're going to increase calories slowly. Seems like calories are important. Seems like a caloric surplus could be beneficial for an optimal range for building muscle. And we know that, right, diet adherence and making sure that we're sticking to this plan is also a component. And finally, the component of this kind of adaptation as we are increasing calories and all these physiological and psychological things are happening, that this is going to kind of build some allow for some fluctuation and some structure around that idea. So let's go ahead and get into the next slide here. So when I'm thinking about the plan here, just to give us an idea, give us a map of what this might look like, we're looking at, I'm thinking 12 weeks. We could stretch this out a little bit longer, so we could spend more time in one of these sections a little bit longer. But as we alluded to earlier, right, we had weeks 1 through 3 might be at maintenance, just eating 2,600 calories, 2,600, let's call it 27. Is roughly 2678. So a maintenance, which would be our maintenance calories. So that even keel, right, in and out. Weeks 4 through 6, so maybe another 2 weeks will be spent at 2,800 calories. Again, monitoring that body fat percentage, monitoring that muscle mass, monitoring our weight, kind of staying within that range of 0.5 pound to maybe 2 pounds per week, give or take. Like, I wouldn't say that that's a necessity. I wouldn't say that's a necessity to happen, but we can rest assured, like, if we're having more food coming in, we're going to store more glycogen in our muscles, right? That storage form of carbohydrate, that's going to pull in water as well. That's going to weigh more overall. We're developing new muscle tissue. That's going to weigh more. We're going to probably fill up our liver, and our digestive tract will be nice and full and flourishing. So that's going to be nice and full and heavy. So, right, we're probably going to see some weight increases, but we should see that composition kind of shift of being like, ooh, lean body mass is going up, boom, 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 boom. And then we might see body fat stay the same, but we, ideally, hopefully see body fat percentage maybe decrease a little bit, specifically in someone that's kind of new to this area as well. So, and then, of course, weeks 7 through 9, maybe 2,946 calories. So another 10% surplus there. And then weeks 10 through 12 are going to be closer to that 3,000, kind of that max out period of time. Seeing that weight tick up a little too much, then we might stick at, the 2,900 calories until we see some of those adaptations happen where, she's burning hot, right? She's physically, she's heat is radiating off of her. She's almost food sweats, right? She's sweating after food because she's just burning so much energy. And then the adaptations of maybe her being more physically active and just her day to day and more willing to, I don't know, dishwasher, loading the dishwasher, moving around more, taking the dog for more walks, right? We just noticed that there's a little bit more, there's an uptick in overall activity. We can see that, and then right, that would probably correlate with a plateau in weight, maybe just a slight increase in weight, but then we'd also probably see a decrease in body fat, and the hypothesis would be probably a decrease in body fat and an increase in muscle mass. So that's what I would do there. That's what our plan is for this. Right now we're in week 1 at 2678 for calories. Let's see what we got next here for this next slide. All right, so taking it back to some of the research here and, why we're doing what we're doing. And this was really pairing or giving, some examples to what I was talking about earlier, which, the research that we are looking at is an energy surplus required for maximal skeletal muscle hypertrophy associated with resistance training. Any increase in lean body mass will also increase energy expenditure, both at rest and during exercise, due to the addition of metabolically active tissue. But the implications of this are likely substantially less than is often presumed. Indeed, estimates of metabolic activity of individual components of fat-free mass, FFM, suggest skeletal muscle mass has an energy cost of 54 kilojoules per kilogram per day. Given this, the elevation in resting energy expenditure, remember take it back to that total daily energy expenditure that we were talking about earlier, in response to a 1 to 2 kilogram gain in muscle mass is likely very small and within the precision of error of indirect calorimetry techniques available to quantify resting energy expenditure. Less is known about the impact of both training and an energy surplus on high metabolic activity tissues like internal organs. However, just 3 weeks of energy restrictions has been shown to significantly decrease liver and kidney mass with associated reductions in resting energy expenditure, confirming manipulations of energy balance may impact high metabolic activity tissues size and thus presumably energy expenditure. So I think that our hypothesis is good here, and the idea is right, we're doing a caloric surplus, we're keeping it tight, right, 5, 10, 15% over a period of time, gradually increasing. And I think this would be a great time to differentiate the two of like a clean bulk versus a dirty bulk, right? We're controlling for calories. We're allowing for this optimal muscle growth by getting enough energy, maybe a little bit extra. And then also, right, but we're also not doing a dirty bulk, which we're just like shoving as much food as we possibly can down the gullet and then saying, great, I put on muscle, but then I also put on 2 pounds of muscle, but then, 20 pounds of fat. So I think we're in a good spot. This is where that hypothesis is coming from. Okay, so as we close out this idea, right, this idea of the ideal amount of calories for a female to create an environment, right, where we are building the most amount of muscle tissue. I want to summarize what we've gone through, right? We've gone through, identifying the goals, right? I think that's an important piece here, right? What are the goals? Are we okay with gaining a little bit of weight? We know that's coming down the pipe. In order to gain some muscle, right? And we then took into account, right, what was going to be the total daily energy expenditure. And we went through, right, what does that look like? Where do these calories get partitioned off? And then from there, what we did was we identified, right, the basal metabolic rate. How many calories was going to be required to essentially be able to make sure all of these different functions are happening, right? The eyes, the ears, the brain, the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, all that fun stuff. Do we have enough calories coming in for that? And then, right, based off of that or based off of body weight, we could then take into account the activity factor, right? Looking at what we're doing for work, what we're doing for physical activity and working out, what we're doing for our lifestyle, our home life, right? How active are we there? And so we took into all those things into account, which I think is a very important piece. We'll put another explanation point there. And then we said, okay, cool. This is going to be maintenance calories based on that. And, seeing that we're trying to, strength train a couple times, seeing that, in this case, we're working with, someone that is a hairstylist that has an active lifestyle at home. So, right, we took all those things into account, and we then took that number and said, hey, this is going to be maintenance. And for maintenance, right, we then said, there's some research that shows having a little bit extra might be beneficial in this kind of idea of optimal caloric range for muscle growth, specifically for females. We looked at why that was pretty important for females, right? I mean, there's some societal pressures, there's some things there. And then we brought it all together with this idea. Okay, we came up with an educated guess. We've got our maintenance calories. We know that there's a surplus, not too much of a surplus. So, right, we're going to periodize this idea and gradually increase calories as we progress through. There's several kind of thoughts or guesses that we're going with that as well. It's thinking like, hey, as we increase calories, we're probably going to increase the thermic effect of food. We're probably going to increase the the amount this individual is going to be moving around, and how active they're going to be. We're probably going to account for this new muscle tissue that they're building, and so right, let's let that follow. Let's let that grow with it. Like, let's not get to maintenance and see some muscle growth and plateau, but rather let's get to maintenance, see some muscle growth, then meet again with a surplus, then grow, then meet again with surplus, grow is kind of the idea. And then, we programmed that out. We gave some decent research that looked behind each one of these. And so, yeah, I think that this was a really fun video to put together. I think part 2 is going to be really cool as well. We're going to talk about the macronutrients. So how we're going to partition out these calories to protein, fats, and carbs. And then, so definitely stick around for part 2. Again, I'm going to cue you in to subscribe to get that notification so that when part 2 comes out, that you're ready for it. And, and like I said, I would love to hear from you guys and see what you're struggling with. What, did you figure out your maintenance calories? Do you have questions on that? What that looks like? Let's keep this conversation going in the comment section below. I mean, that's how we progress. That's how science moves forward. That's how people move forward, is, having dialogue with each other. So I would love to see your comments in the section below. Give me a like. Let me know you enjoyed this video. And so without anything else, that's what I've got for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and give me some feedback. So I'm looking forward to part 2 of this video. And until that time, I'm Noah. I'm a dietitian, and thanks for watching.